Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. While Luo Feng was dedicating himself to cultivation, a transcendent being from the primal chaos realm arrived in Chu capital. At one of Marquis Chu Feng's other residences, brother has arrived. A handsome man with 3 eyes looked into the distance and immediately stood up. Marquis Chu Feng also stood up and looked, only to see a figure that had seemingly appeared close by in a blink of an eye. The figure was clad in a simple yet slightly tattered dark robe. At first glance, it seemed merely a damaged robe, but upon close inspection, it felt like looking at a tattered dark world. The figure had a face with blue scales, appearing ugly, yet his eyes were calm and gentle, as if they contained the worlds of heaven and earth. As he approached, he naturally influenced the surrounding environment, as if the very operation of heaven and earth revolved around him. To master a branch of the origin Great Tao is to become a godly king. The complete Great Tao of life origin can evolve the operational laws of the primordial cosmos. A branch of the Tao is also sufficient to sustain the cosmic operational laws of a small universe. With this, a godly king can create a small universe. Godly kings operate the laws of the cosmos independently, possessing unimaginable abilities. When figures like the one in the dark robe arrive, the cosmos centering around them is a common phenomenon seen with godly kings. Lord Yuan Xiao of Yuan Xiao Mansion is clearly only a transcendent of the primal chaos realm, yet he can influence the operation of heaven and earth, more terrifying than the last time I saw him, Marquis Chu Feng thought apprehensively, and immediately went forward to greet him. The novel .net website, on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Brother, this is Marquis Chu Feng, said the handsome 3-eyed man, stepping forward with a smile. Marquis Chu Feng greets the mansion lord, Marquis Chu Feng said with considerable humility. Becoming a transcendent of the primal chaos realm is equivalent to reaching the first realm of the godly king. Such beings seldom care about first-rank marquises. Only a first-rank marquis needs to seek them, and whether they bother with a marquis depends on their mood. When I last saw Marquis Chu Feng, he was still a second-rank marquis, said Lord Yuan Xiao with a smile. Now, he has already become a first-rank marquis. For someone who cultivates, with a regular godly body to reach this level, Marquis Chu Feng is truly extraordinary. Lord, you flatter me, please, have a seat, Marquis Chu Feng said warmly. Soon, the 3 of them sat down, and attendants brought over food and drinks. I heard that the mansion lord came to Chu capital to visit a godly king. Marquis Chu Feng asked. Indeed, I intended to visit a godly king this time in Chu capital. However, I heard, there is a transcendent of the primal chaos realm in Chu capital now, known as Great Saint Luo He, Lord Yuan Xiao said, clearly interested. Marquis Chu Feng nodded. This Great Saint Luo He is quite mysterious, rarely making moves. He previously fought against 5 by himself, and swept through 5 pinnacle beings of the primal chaos realm, revealing his true strength to the outside world. Given his low profile, it seems he also focuses on cultivation. Marquis Chu Feng, I desire to meet this Great Saint Luo He and have a dialogue on the Tao. Please help me arrange it to see if Great Saint Luo He is willing, said Lord Yuan Xiao. Marquis Chu Feng's spirits lifted. He wasn't afraid of a transcendent of the primal chaos realm asking for help. He was afraid they might ignore him entirely. Rest assured, Lord, I will arrange everything properly, said Marquis Chu Feng. During his period of cultivation, Luo Feng occasionally came out to relax his mind. Master, Marquis Chu Feng personally paid a visit, Morosa told Luo Feng, but you were in closed-off cultivation at the time, so I didn't disturb you. He paid a visit. Luo Feng was surprised. After all, Marquis Chufeng was a first-rank nobility of the imperial clan, and he had left after finding Luo Feng in closed-off cultivation, respecting the protocol. Did he mention what it was about? Luo Feng asked. Marquis Chufeng also mentioned that his good friend, Lord Yuan Xiu of Yuan Xiu Mansion, intends to host a banquet for you to discuss the Tao. His visit was to see if you would be willing to attend the banquet to discuss the Tao. Morosa said. Discuss the Tao. Lord Yuan Xiu. Luo Feng naturally knew of him. Emperor Chu's lineage had only two transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. One was Marquis Dark Fire, a direct disciple of Emperor Chu. The other was Lord Yuan Xiu, a direct disciple of the sovereign of the first-class country, Wanjie Kingdom. In the land of origin, there are three major first-class forces: Tianmu Kingdom, Wanjie Kingdom, and the Eastern Extreme Territory. The Eastern Extreme Territory is the last surviving place of the original Aborigines of the land of origin. Although these Aborigines are somewhat lacking in intelligence and perceptiveness, their gathering also qualifies them as a first-class force. Tianmu Kingdom is known for possessing a pinnacle sector beast. Wanjie Kingdom's prominence comes from the sovereign of Wanjie Kingdom. The sovereign's power alone has transformed a region into a first-class force, ensuring that he stands among the pinnacle existences of the land of origin. The sovereign's disciples are numerous. Some serve as guest elders in the Thunder Ancient Country, others in the Flame Wind Ancient Country. Master, will you attend the banquet to discuss the Tao? Morosa asked. Agree to it, Luo Feng nodded. A dialogue on the Tao with a peer at the same level of strength interested him as well. After all, like Lord Yuan Xiu, those who have achieved transcendence through primordial items or primordial bloodline are the norm in the land of origin. This would also be an opportunity to see the differences between him and them. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In Chu capital, the celebrated 13-star hall, Lord Yuan Xiu was hosting the banquet here, specifically to honor great Saint Luo He. Previously, the 13 emperors of the Flame Wind Ancient Country had gathered once in Chu capital, and that time Emperor Chu himself had established the 13-star hall. After the gathering of the 13 emperors here, the 13-star hall naturally became famous, and hosting a banquet here was also costly. This time, everything was arranged by Marquis Chufeng, naturally done in a grand manner. A dialogue between two transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. This is really rare. I heard that aside from Marquis Chu Yuan, the other 6 first-rank marquises have all come to attend the banquet. Too bad we're not qualified to see it. Some chefs preparing food quietly discussed this. They were all well-known chefs within Chu capital, each one at the eternal true god level. Today, there was even a chef from the primal chaos realm present, personally invited by Marquis Chufeng. In another building. Sister Yu, I went to great lengths to arrange for you to perform in front of the hall today, said a chubby man earnestly. Today, the upper echelons of Chu capital are gathering. 6 of the 7 first-rank marquises are here. Even 2 transcendents from the primal chaos realm. There are more than 10 direct disciples of the godly kings. If even one of them takes an interest in you and is willing to help you, you could escape your predicament. Marquis Chu Le, thank you so much. If it weren't for your help, I might not have survived till today, said a woman dressed in light blue. Alas, as a third-class noble of the imperial clan, I hold no power, the chubby man shook his head. In Chu capital, I'm even less influential than those with actual power in the primal chaos realm. There are 29 marquises in the Emperor Chu's lineage, but only 2 of them possess the strength of the average primal chaos realm, and Marquis Chu Le is one of them. To the imperial clan, those of the weakest primal chaos realm are considered worthless, with no cultivation value. Luo Feng's Blade Light of the Galaxy had the force of a limit-burning divine power full strike at the mid-layer of the primal chaos realm, much stronger than Marquis Chula. Marquis Chula had grown accustomed to such days, preferring pleasure and making numerous like-minded friends. "I must remind you," the chubby man said, "the two highest-ranking guests at this banquet are from the transcendence of the primal chaos realm, one of whom is Great Saint Luo He. He really enjoys listening to music." The woman in light blue's eyes lit up. "This is secret information about Great Saint Luo He that cost me quite a bit of cosmic sand," continued the chubby man. "Back when he was in Huyang City, he favored two musicians who excelled in music. Your performance, if it pleases him, your status in Chu capital will be solidified." "Thank you, Marquis Chula," the woman expressed her gratitude. "That's all I can do, the rest is up to you," the chubby man waved his hand and left. The woman in light blue patiently waited. She was not the only performer at this banquet. The banquet admitted 6 first-class nobles of the imperial clan, 8 second-class nobles, 9 guest elders, and 15 disciples directly taught by godly kings, along with their attendant servants. Of course, the two most central seats in the main hall were reserved for the two transcendents from the primal chaos realm. "They are here. Great Saint Luo He is here." The banquet was primarily in honor of Great Saint Luo He. When Luo Feng arrived with Emperor Chu Yu, they naturally attracted attention from all sides. Some lesser nobles, families of first and second-class nobles, casual members of the primal chaos realm, and even some servants and attendants eagerly looked forward to glimpsing the man in black. As the man in black appeared, Emperor Chu Yu slightly lagged behind. Whoosh! Outside the main hall, Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion personally appeared to greet them. Brother Luo He, Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion smiled at Luo Feng. Brother Yuan Xiu, Luo Feng also spoke, smiling back at this transcended being of the primal chaos realm, the center seemingly governed by the cosmic operational laws. Able to influence the cosmic operational laws. Luo Feng inwardly sighed, something he was incapable of. Solely in terms of the path realm, he was still inferior to these transcendents of primal chaos realm. Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion observed Luo Feng, his strongest technique being the dark mansion prison cultivated within his body, capable of imprisoning everything far and wide within an instant. What a terrifying physical body, Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion noted upon seeing Luo Feng, perceiving that the unassuming man in black, despite appearing ordinary, was much denser than the vast cosmical environment around him. Immensely dense, probably very difficult to pull into the dark mansion. Even without a fight, just by looking once, Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion already made some deductions. His physical body is much denser than some who first entered the God-King realm from ancient existences, he thought to himself. Brother Luo He, please. Please. Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion and Luo Feng both remained very polite, as their interactions this time were merely about discussing the path, so both sides were courteous. Had it been a fight, things would have been starkly different. Together, they entered the main hall, and the numerous first and second-class nobles, guest elders, and disciples of godly kings all stood up to greet them and soon took their seats. Commence the banquet, Marquis Chu Feng instructed. The banquet officially began, with courses of exquisite food, wine, and fruits presented. Luo Feng tasted some and was surprised. The dishes, at their weakest, matched the standards of Black Butcher of the Fire Realm restaurant. Some even far surpassed him. A seemingly ordinary platter appeared almost like the essence of heaven and earth converging, very appetizing. After trying one, Luo Feng felt this influence on the soul. It even exceeded many heavenly rarities, sharply enhancing his sensitivity to all things and significantly aiding his cultivation. Elder brother Yu's culinary skills have indeed become even more impressive, Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion commented appreciatively after tasting. Culinary skills reaching primal chaos realm, truly remarkable. Luo Feng also knew him, one of Emperor Chu's lineage's guest elders, Yu Jiufang, whose strength was at the top tier of the primal chaos realm, but it was his culinary skills that had reached this realm. In the entire Chu capital, he was the best in culinary arts. "You flatter me too much," Yu Jiufang, who had also entered the hall, had his pride before some noble marquises, but showed much humbleness before the two transcendents of the primal chaos realm. Diverse dishes, rare spirit fruits, and exquisite wines continued to be served. Dance, music, songs. Performers at the banquet were at least at the eternal true God level in their respective arts. Weaker individuals watching these performances would find their spirits uncontrollably affected. Luo Feng and others, however, could enjoy them with ease and pleasure. Truly worthy of Chu capital, several performers today are more skilled than even the Dream Flower Tower master, Luo Feng remarked in admiration, thinking to himself, in the future, I could utilize this for 7 emotions of heart refining technique. Long years of cultivation tend to make emotions increasingly indifferent, with smaller fluctuations. However, 7 emotions of heart refining technique facilitates awakening of the spirit. The performance has ended. As the performance by the woman in light blue concluded, she noticed the surrounding distinguished guests, all smiling and chatting jovially. The two transcendents occupying the main seats seemed to be casually chatting, and didn't seem particularly interested in her. Not daring to stare directly, she promptly and obediently exited once her time was up. All the guests in the main hall of this banquet are high-ranking individuals from Chu capital. Take Yu Jiufang, for instance. Even though he is merely a top-tier practitioner in the primal chaos realm, it is exceedingly rare for anyone in the land of origin to reach the pinnacle in culinary skills. The godly kings often invite him, and he always sets his sights pretty high, not necessarily accepting invitations even from first-class marquises of the imperial clan. But this time, it was a banquet to discuss Tao among two transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. Yu Jiufang was well aware of his position, capable of acting superior to those in the primal chaos realm and marquises of the imperial clan, but he adopted a very humble attitude towards godly kings and transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. Brother Luo He, the lord of Yuan Xiao Mansion, sitting there with a smile, said, I have spent a long time refining a dark mansion prison. Today, I will use some methods from the dark mansion to exchange a few moves with Brother Luo He. The guests in the main hall immediately realized that the highlight of the banquet had arrived. This level of confrontation was a rare sight for them. I've focused on physical body cultivation, so I'll use some physical techniques and compare notes with Brother Yuan Xiao. Luo Feng nodded in agreement. Lord of Yuan Xiao Mansion nodded, his dark robe slightly tattered, like a damaged dark world, and suddenly, specks of dark flames began to spread over his robe. These dark flames spread toward Luo Feng in the main hall. This is the fire of the dark mansion, capable of burning the godly body and soul of a prisoner in the dark mansion. Luo Feng looked at those dark flames, and immediately his black robe also had black liquid spreading out. The black liquid, flowing like water, swiftly made contact with the dark flames. Sizzling _, flames burnt intensely. But the black liquid quickly enveloped them, each flame was wrapped by the black liquid. This black liquid was the yin-yang particle form of the Black Abyss transformation method, appearing to spread out not so abundantly, but actually already reached hundreds of millions of units engulfed it. Luo Feng clearly understood the advantage of his transformation method, overwhelming by sheer volume. Both of their robes are extraordinary. Can the Lord of Yuan Xiao Mansion's robe transform into the fire of the Dark Mansion? And the robe of Great Saint Luo He also extends black liquid. The black liquid has enveloped all the fire of the Dark Mansion. The fire of the Dark Mansion is undying, but the black liquid can also easily trap the fire from the Dark Mansion. Present were marquises of first and second class, guest officials of the primal chaos realm, direct disciples of godly kings, each with exceptional vision, and they all perceived the terrifying capabilities of both parties. The fire of the Dark Mansion was famous. Generally, even pinnacle practitioners of the primal chaos realm would not dare to confront it directly, as it would burn them into nothingness. Great Saint Luo He, who specialized in refining his physical body and transcended the primal chaos realm, was well known for being near indestructible among the levels of the primal chaos realm. "This black liquid, what secret technique is it?" exclaimed the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion. He sensed that the fire of the Dark Mansion could not damage this black liquid, and if Luo Feng wished, he could actually obliterate the flames with the overwhelming wrap of the black liquid. Luo Feng smiled and said, "It can be called the waters of the Black Abyss." Luo Feng knew well, if it were merely one unit of the Black Abyss transformation method, it would certainly be burnt and destroyed. But with hundreds of millions of units sweeping over, it naturally held an overwhelming advantage. The waters of the Black Abyss, understood the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion, impressive, impressive. The many guests watching were also secretly astonished. The fire of the Dark Mansion needn't be overstated for its fame. But these waters of the Black Abyss seemed to be just as formidable. Sigh. The fire of the Dark Mansion withdrew, retracting back into the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion's dark robe. With a thought, Luo Feng drew back hundreds of millions of units of black liquid. "I have an axe that harnesses the power of the Dark Mansion, capable of beheading prisoners of the Dark Mansion," said the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion, as immediately the surrounding atmosphere darkened, and a huge axe blade flickered in and out of visibility, like a divine punishment. "This is also one of my strongest moves. I fancy blade techniques. This is also one of my strongest frontal combat moves." Luo Feng gestured, and 80,000 galaxy blade lights condensed into an equally massive blade light. This 13-star palace, once the gathering place of 13 emperors, has a terrifying formation. The formation operated so there was no concern of the spillover impacting the other guests, while the two transcended beings of the primal chaos realm sparred. These are their strongest level techniques. Wonder who is stronger. The guests watched tensely, while some guests in the side halls didn't even have the privilege to watch, only knowing that the battle had commenced in the main hall. The divine punishment-like axe blade slowly descended, not fast in speed, but its might was evidently hard to counter. Slash! Luo Feng's mind moved, and the massive blade light formed by 80,000 galaxy blade lights, using a blade river slash, met it head-on. Coordinating so many galaxy blade lights, and executing a sophisticated move of the primal chaos realm level also placed a heavy burden on Luo Feng's spiritual will. Indeed, it was a near-limit long-range attack move. The axe and blade light collided. At the moment of collision, a huge phantom of the Dark Mansion prison loomed behind the axe, seeming as though the entire world's force augmented it, carrying powers like obliteration, penetration, divine punishment, and more, making the axe extremely terrifying. And Luo Feng's immense blade light was like 80,000 mid-layer, primal chaos realm powerhouses simultaneously unleashing their full power in a godly power burst attack, and moreover, it was executed with the essence of Blade River Slash, making the force too terrifying. Currently Blade River Slash, integrating some mysteries of extermination of 72 blades, heaven-splitting lineage, and dark heaven lineage, although it was simplified, still carried a bifurcating essence. Whoosh! The huge axe blade was forcefully cleaved by the blade light, splitting it right in the middle. And Luo Feng's huge blade light, not a complete weapon secret treasure, but rather 80,000 galaxy blade lights converged, also exhibited numerous cracks under such a collision, but then quickly coalesced back together. The giant axe blade split apart, but also healed just as quickly, a result of the concentrated power in the Dark Mansion world, and it was not a weapon secret treasure either. Admirable, the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion praised. Impressive. Luo Feng also noticed the differences between them. The giant axe blade's power was far inferior to his own blade strike, yet it could easily find the weak spots in his blade light. It quickly locked onto the fact that the 80,000 blade lights were not unified, could naturally infiltrate, and caused the 80,000 blade lights to split apart. Even in a single exchange, his 80,000 galaxy blade lights had annihilated 3. Of course, he still possessed a massive reserve of the galaxy transformation method. Many of my methods stem from the Dark Mansion, said the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion. The Dark Mansion is also my strongest method. Brother Luo He, would you dare to try entering it? Luo Feng smiled, I dare not. The Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion was taken aback. It was merely a casual competition, and moreover, it was within the 13-star hall and inside Chu Capital. He naturally had to abide by the rules. But I can part some of my power to test the might of the Dark Mansion, Luo Feng said as he waved his hand, and instantly 5 kinds of transformation methods, each comprising 1 billion units, flew out and ultimately condensed into a silver silhouette. Good. The Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion showed a delighted expression, and immediately looked toward the silver silhouette, intending to capture and imprison it with the Dark Mansion. Buzz. The terrifying power of the Dark Mansion world engulfed the silver silhouette, attempting to drag it into the Dark Mansion. But the silver silhouette stood there as if anchored in place, and could not be dragged or shaken at all. Boom 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 tilde 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 tilde. The dragging force of the Dark Mansion world erupted fully, causing the surrounding space to twist into a chaotic mess. Under the protection of the 13-star hall's formation, the guests all watched the scene in shock. It was rare to see the Dark Mansion fully unleashed. It cannot be moved. The Dark Mansion is a prison world cultivated within the body of the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion. If one is imprisoned inside, it would be difficult to escape. But the silver body formed by part of Great Saint Luo, his power cannot be imprisoned by the Dark Mansion. All eyes were watching. Luo Feng appeared calm, but his spiritual will was focused on the silver body, resisting the drag of the Dark Mansion world. Buzz. The dragging force of the Dark Mansion world was mysterious, capable of affecting spiritual will, but Luo Feng, being in the second realm of Godly King and using the Lai Yuan technique, completely ignored this influence. And while the world's dragging force was enormous, the silver body, with a cumulative 50 billion units of transformation method, vibrated slightly and broke free from the restraint. Brother Luo, his body refinement technique is unimaginable, praised the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion. I cannot trap it inside the Dark Mansion, only the Dark Mansion world itself can now descend. Buzz tilde 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 tilde. A dark world descended from the void into reality, the Dark Mansion cultivated by the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion. It could be kept inside the body or released externally, though its power would decrease a notch when released. Now it was actively descending to envelop Luo Feng's silver body. Once the Dark Mansion world enveloped it, the restraints on the silver body significantly increased, with 8 chains swiftly winding around it. These 8 chains were of 8 colors, branded with various secret patterns, and even contained traces of primordial force. These were the 8 prison chains forged by the Lord of Yuan Shio Mansion using primordial materials, melded into the dark prison. As Luo Feng felt the chains binding him, they sealed, suppressed, bound, strangled, infiltrated, and tore. All sorts of forces permeated his power avatar. The power of the silver body erupted, but the 8 chains were incredibly tough, undamaged in the slightest. HMPH. The silver body suddenly grew larger, forcibly stretching the 8 chains significantly, yet they still did not break. My transformation methods are formless, but after being bound by the 8 chains, not even a single unit could escape, Luo Feng remarked in surprise. Only brute force could withstand it. The silver body grew towering and tall, reaching the top of the main hall, and its full strength erupted, but it still could not break free from the 8 prison chains. Brother Yuan Shio's Dark Mansion is indeed powerful. I cannot break free with this power avatar, Luo Feng lamented. I cannot even drag a single power avatar of Brother Luo He into the dark mansion. Even if I bind it with chains, it still wouldn't harm a power avatar, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion said aloud, though he was secretly shocked. He had cultivated the secret technique, and even forged this dark prison using primordial materials. Who would have thought that great Saint Luo his physical body had been cultivated to such an extent that just a single avatar of his was difficult to completely imprison within the dark mansion. I can trap his avatar, but not harm it. As for his true body, it remains to be seen whether it can be trapped or not, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion concluded, recognizing the formidable nature of Luo his physical body. The Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion thought for a moment, then retracted the dark mansion world. Luo Feng also retracted the power avatar. Such a large power avatar, he could only use it at close range. After all, he did not have a clone technique, and from a distant place, he could only barely summon a strain of divine power. This power avatar contained 50 billion units of transformation method, yet it couldn't break the chains. This power avatar possessed 2 to 3/10 of the strength of the true body, Luo Feng thought, as he currently maintained a total of 200 billion units of transformation method. If the true body were trapped, it might not be able to break free either. Saw the novel, F.I.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This exchange also made Luo Feng aware of the terrifying aspects of normal transcendence of the primal chaos realm. The dark prison, aided by primordial materials, was finally successfully refined. Even if a regular godly king was imprisoned, it would only take some time to escape, not harming the dark prison at all. This discussion with Brother Luo, he has enlightened me to the formidable nature of the body refinement lineage transcendence of the primal chaos realm. The Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion raised a glass, please. Please, Luo Feng also raised a glass. The other guests in the main hall were astounded by their matchup. The strength of these two was indeed far beyond the scope of the primal chaos realm. It was in the realm of a godly king, and even a slight exertion of their power could annihilate them. The banquet concluded in a friendly atmosphere. News of this exchange quickly spread throughout Chu capital. This video will end here.